We're back, and we're in for a treat. We have the pleasure of sitting down with Bryan Greene, consulting producer for Summer of Soul. How are you, sir?
Good.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, while you're here in Delaware, just for our viewers, are you originally from here?
No, I am not.
Okay.
I'm a New Yorker originally.
Okay.
And I've lived more than half my life now in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, help me understand some of your background.
Sure.
It's my understanding you went to Harvard, correct?
Yeah.
And what did you major in while you were there?
I was a government major.
Really?
And I worked for almost 30 years in the government.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And for someone that, and it's actually a bit of a treat to hear that you went to Harvard and focused in government, because I went to get my bachelor's in political science, but I went to an arts school.
Oh.
So it's kind of interesting to hear that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you get involved with Summer of Soul?
So in addition to my other job, I am a writer.
Okay.
And so I'm a freelance writer, writing a lot about history.
Okay.
I'm also a guitarist, so I enjoy music. And when I heard about the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival and the fact that no one had heard of it before, I was like, this is a story that must be told. And beyond that, I said, there ought to be a movie about this.
Now, who's all involved with the actual Summer of Soul?
So the film that is out now is a music documentary, and it was directed by Questlove, Amir Thompson, of The Roots.
Okay.
And, the project goes back a few years. Well, first of all, there were many people who were trying to get a hold of this actual footage. This is footage of a concert in Harlem, 1969. It's actually a festival, six Sunday concerts. And that footage sat in a basement for 50 years. The person who shot the footage, people had approached many times to sell it, but it was only around the time he died that people got a hold of it. Wow. And so I had written the most comprehensive account of this festival, and I hooked up with the producers who obtained the footage to tell this story.
Now, is the footage, now that the footage is out, how can viewers get access to see it?
So now, Questlove has put together a 2-hour film with the highlights of this concert and the context, and that's where a lot of the themes that I have written about come into play. So it's a 2-hour Hulu documentary. You can see it's actually in the theaters as well. And we think it's a concert film on par with Woodstock and all those other ones that came out back in the day. This one's just long overdue.
Now, how did you, for someone that's you just shared with me, you graduated from Harvard, you focused in politics. Why this? Why this project? For someone that's got a government relations type background, why music? Why Harlem? Why this project?
Well, because music is based in culture, and this story in particular tells the story of African American culture and history and politics at the time. So the story that I wrote in 2017 that started this for me was all about how the mayor of New York at that time, Mayor Lindsay, was a strong supporter of African American culture and African American political participation. He was very popular among African Americans, which surprised a lot of people because he was a Republican from the Silk Stocking district of New York. But I got interested in the story in part because I was researching him, and I found out there was this festival where people called him onto the stage and introduced him as our blue-eyed soul brother working for us downtown. And I was just like, I've got to understand this better. Why was he so popular among African Americans in New York? And I grew up in New York, and I remember my parents talking about Lindsay and what they liked about him. And so he supported this festival. It was in one of the parks in New York for six Sundays, and this had the backing of the city. In fact, the guy who organized it was African American lounge singer who the city had hired to organize this festival.
Wow. Just listening to you, we just ended our Clifford Brown Jazz Festival last week, and our very own Ivan Thomas was hosting with Tina Betts from Culture Affairs.
Oh, good.
And it's really interesting to hear you speak on the importance of music and its how it played its role even during the Civil Rights era. Because I think about my grandfather who talks about Otis Redding and Aretha Franklin, and looking at some of the reviews for Summer of Soul and the individuals that were involved in that. I think of songs that it's been a long time coming. So when you watch this, did what kind of feeling did it get to you? Because just watching Black History movies, Civil Rights movies, just the music alone, it moves me. To the core. So I'm curious how it moved you.
Well, I mean, this was America at a crossroads, and particularly Black America. This was the year after Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated.
Right.
And, they talked about this at the festival. So the Staple Singers, who were civil rights activists themselves, they performed. And they performed at one point with Jesse Jackson's Operation Breadbasket Orchestra. So Jesse Jackson's up on the stage directing, conducting a band. And they talk about Dr. King and the assassination of Dr. King. And he talks about how Dr. King's favorite song was My Precious Lord, and brings out Mahalia Jackson. And Mavis Staples to sing this song together in honor of Dr. King. So, so there's explicit discussion of politics. There's stuff going on in Harlem that, they talked about from the stage. But beyond that, there was political expression in the music, whether it was gospel or whether it was Sly and the Family Stone, taking things in a completely different direction. So, politics and music are always...
They always go hand in hand.
They're steeped.
And it definitely, if you can't articulate it through a speech, a lot of our musicians and artists have been able to articulate it through a song. So what is your hope for the general public to get out of this when they're watching it?
Yeah, obviously to enjoy just the amazing music that African Americans have contributed to this country. And there's also, Latin music here too, because this is the Harlem Cultural Festival, and we have Spanish Harlem in New York, and it was the entire community coming together. So, there's great music for people to enjoy, but also just a better understanding of the historical context. What was going on in America? What were the challenges? What were the choices we had at that time, too? Because America was hurting. We had several assassinations, in addition to Dr. King, the Kennedys, for example. And so people see, where we were at the time, the choices we had to make. The moon landing occurred right in the middle of the festival. And African Americans, a large percentage of African Americans didn't support the moon landing. They thought it was a distraction from issues here on Earth. So I think people can get a better understanding of where we've been when they watch this film.
And isn't it funny too how history repeats itself? Because just listening to you and thinking back to the civil rights movement, here we are post-COVID, a health pandemic, following Black Lives Matter movement. Do you see how this documentary relates to even our current issues that we're dealing with now?
I think so, yes. I mean, I think this movie has been so popular in large part because people are reaching for a better understanding of African American history and, what have been our triumphs, but also what are the barriers that we still face today. So, and people like some good music.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm one of them. One of them. When you were telling me that you could play guitar, I was like, I can do keyboard, but don't get me to play with you. I might be able to do a little chopsticks, nothing more than that. Now, I noticed there were some artists that were very monumental that have changed my life with their music that played a role in this. Stevie Wonder, B.B. King. You care to speak to some of that? Because Stevie Wonder, like I said, during the civil rights era, he played a huge role with his music. Like, he touched a lot of topics, controversial, some good, some bad. Like, he was all over. Like, who were some of the artists?
Yeah, he was 19 when he played the Harlem Cultural Festival.
How old was he? Was even younger than that when he signed with Motown, correct?
Yes, So he's there, incredible performance. I don't want to give it away, but there's some surprises in his performance. You had 6 different days of concerts, and they each had a different theme. Like, you had blues, you had gospel, you had R&B. And so you had Latin music, so you had representatives of all those different genres. Fifth Dimension, they were there. Wow. They sung Aquarius and Let the Sun Shine In. They were one of the most popular acts in America at the time they played this. People who came to the Harlem Cultural Festival got to see them for free in the park in Harlem. Oh Happy Day by the Edwin Hawkins Singers. That was one of the most popular songs in the world that year. That whole choir from the Bay Area, they were there to sing at the Harlem Cultural Festival. Mahalia Jackson, the Staple Singers, B.B. King, Nina Simone, really spectacular performance from her.
You know, I just Mahalia Jackson was played in my household all the time. I grew up with a grandmother that's a former minister, and you know, Mahalia Jackson. Just looking at some of the history with her, you know, going back to how we kept highlighting how music played a huge role in African American lives then and now.
Yeah,
you know, I would read about how Dr. King at times before having to give a speech would call Mahalia Jackson. And ask her to just sing to him a gospel song just to lift his spirits up.
That's right.
Before going out there and addressing a crowd. So these artists played a huge role in more ways than one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You really see the integral role that these artists played in African American history and protest.
Wow. Well, I'm truly looking forward to seeing this, and we're actually going to take a moment to check out the trailer and make sure all the viewers get to look at it. So check this out. We'll be right back.
Are you ready, black people? Are you ready? Are you really ready? Are you ready to listen to all the beautiful black voices, the beautiful black feeling, the beautiful black waves moving in beautiful air? Are you ready, black people? Are you ready?
Nobody ever heard of the Harlem Cultural Festival. Nobody would believe it happened.
6 weekends of major artists.
The Panthers were the security and kids were sitting up on the trees. I was nervous.
I didn't expect a crowd like that. Something very important was happening. It wasn't just about the music.
1969 was a change of era in the black community.
The styles were changing.
Music was changing.
And revolution was coming together.
We are a new people. We are a beautiful people.
That concert took my life from black and white into color.
We wanted progress. We are black people, and we should be proud of this.
We were coming together to say this was our world and how beautiful it was.
We're gonna try to sing a song together. Don't wait for your neighbor, because your neighbor might be waiting for you.
Wanna take you higher? Are you ready? Wanna take you higher?
We believed in what we felt in here. So when we went up, let's go do it.
That was awesome. Did you see the crowd? Like,
Yeah.
The crowd alone, like I
50,000 some days.
wow.
Yeah.
And it was 7 days like that?
Yeah, 6 days. Yeah.
Good God.
300,000 people.
You know what it makes me think of when I was looking at the trailer? It reminds me of the March on Washington.
Yeah.
It truly does. And then to see people like David Ruffin.
Yeah.
We got the Temptations coming to the Grand Opera House in
All right.
October. So
All right.
when I saw David Ruffin
Yeah.
and then to see Stevie Wonder on the drums, I didn't even know he played the drums. I
Yes.
knew about the harmonica, I knew
That
about
was
the
a
piano.
surprise, yes.
Yeah. that is really cool. And Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Yes.
That was
It's a roll call
yeah.
of top talent.
Yeah.
All playing free in the park.
Ironically, that's like my whole playlist. So the crew
Then you
teases-
must see it.
Yeah, I gotta see it now. The crew teases me here, but I
Yeah.
listened to every single one of those folks that were highlighting that trailer. Wow. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you are a part of this.
Thanks.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this to the general public to watch. For all of those that are watching, please tune in on Hulu. You can catch Summer of Soul there. Mr. Greene, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
We'll be right back.